Show's on.
All right, now it's starting.
Mm.
So there is a big connection between Theravada and Zen, and that not only does it go back centuries, all the way back to the connection with the Buddha, and that it was in fact Theravada monks from India that went as far as not only China but into Japan. And so the Zen is nothing more than the let us say a combination of factors that already existed in Japan at that time, and the combination of factors of what was happening in Thailand at that time, and some of those things were similar. Now here's the next connection is actually with Bhikkhu Buddhadasa. That Bhikkhu Buddhadasa was curious not just about Theravada, but he had a deep abiding friendship with the Dalai Lama. In fact, the Dalai Lama did come to visit Achan Bhikkhu Buddhadasa, as did most of the monks in Thailand, that he was highly respected. And I know that there was a number of Zen monks who came. Some of them were Westerners and some of them were Japanese, but one of them was quite famous in the artwork that he did. His name is Emmanuel Sherman, and he stayed at Wat Suan Mok from, like the middle 50s, and then he came over to this island and was here for a couple of years and then died here of pneumonia on this island. But while he was at Wat Suan Mok, he did a lot of spiritual art. And as you know, that part of Zen and calligraphy and art is very much wrapped up together. And so at Wat Suan Mok, there's a huge amount of Japanese Zen art that was done by this Japanese monk while he was living with Bhikkhu Buddhadasa. So there's that kind of connection, but Bhikkhu Buddhadasa's connection with Zen is even deeper. Now let's go into the actual teachings, especially in the sense of the practice. And to make sure that I'm on the right track here, let's review some of the things that you do know about Zen, in the sense that right off the bat, they talk about nothing to do and no place to go and nothing to attain, and that you're already enlightened. Have you heard such things?
I have, but the practice that they tend to give to beginners and the practice they've given to me is breath counting.
Okay. Well, now you're right back to Anapanasati.
Exactly. So I felt right at home.
Yes, exactly. So Anapanasati and the higher qualities of Zen is exactly what is the Anapanasati practice fully in the Theravada system. All right, that we continue to watch the breath, even though we go right into the higher qualities of that. In fact, it's really just sitting. That's what the word zazen means.
Yeah.
It means just sitting, as opposed to sitting and thinking, or sitting and feeling, or sitting and wanting.
Exactly.
Like sitting and wanting to not sit, sitting and wanting to be out of here. Oh no, what that zazen means actually has the quality of deep satisfaction. That just sitting is really all that's needed to be done. Just be here now sitting. And so in that regard, then you can also see that not only is the connections through the people very deep between, let us say, Achan, Bhikkhu Buddhadasa, and Zen, but also the method and the practice and the results of the practice. That the only thing that's different is the appearance of it and the language of it. The language is quite different.
Yeah, it's very
all right,
different.
Now, here's an example of it that's exquisite within the Zen system. Within the concept of Zen and the art of archery, and you know that Zen and the art of can be taken to many things. I even have a practice called Zen and the art of donuts, and I'll tell you about it in a minute. But within Zen and the art of archery, everything is about the form in the sense of the katas that the Zen archer has to go through that are similar to the katas that the karate goes through. A sequence of step-by-step movements of the drawing of the arrow, the drawing of the bow, the way that the bow is pulled back so that it is the strength of the left arm that pushes the bow out, as opposed to taking the force with the hand that draws it in. So they start with the bow up like this, so that the arrow is already right here at the face anyway. And then it's done like that. Completely different than the Western style.
Yeah.
There's a lot of other differences, and here's the main point is that hitting the target with the arrow is not the object.
Yeah.
That in fact, where the arrow lands is kind of unimportant. It's the form that's important. Now, when these Zen archers are actually mounted, and there's only 2 schools in Japan left that actually teach mounted archery, and that they do it all with wooden horses. They don't even get on the real horse until it's time for the tournament. And so they learn to manage the horse with their legs, because both of their hands are going to be on the bow, and that they're going to have to be able to hit a target regardless of which direction or angle the horse is in. So these wooden horses that these guys are on are being spun around by his teammates while he's practicing like this. All right, and so just the general area of the arrow in that regard is all he's shooting for. That what he's actually doing is he's practicing the form of getting these deep proprioceptive memories functioning direct into the body. And guess what? Anapanasati is absolutely a part of this. But the important point is that it's not where the arrow goes that's the important part. It's doing it correctly.
Yeah.
All right. Now, on the side point, the Zen and the art of donuts means that if you take donuts to the office and offer them around, everybody will be happy that you've delivered donuts, whether they eat one or not. So that even if the donuts at the end of the day are mostly taken home by the janitor, that's still okay. Everybody wins.
Yeah.
But many people will take donuts, and when nobody eats them, they feel bad because they've got a target. So this has a lot of the quality of developing that there really is nothing to do. There is nothing really worth doing except what's being done in the immediate moment. So even the fletchery of the arrows and the making of the bows is all very formalized to get the movements down exactly right, which means that the guy that's doing it is not intending to make a bow. He doesn't have that in the far off distant idea. But basically what he's thinking about while he's making that turn, while he's got this bow piece of wood between these posts, and he's taking it and bending it, he's thinking about taking it and bending it.
Exactly.
He's not thinking about this as a bow.
And I find that they do that here with the whole schedule. The whole schedule is set, and it's the same every day. And so you stop having to think about, what do I do next? Where do I need to be? You just, oh, now I bow. And then it's so much easier to just bow. instead of being like, oh, what is the, trying to figure out exactly what the pattern is, you just fall into this flow of doing the thing.
So that really does then begin to free up the mind so it can pay attention to what's happening in the present moment.
Exactly, yeah.
Because you don't have to make any decisions anymore. There's nothing to
Exactly,
do.
yep. And I've found that when they give us 24 to 48 hours of a break in every week, and I found those periods of time to be the most difficult, because I'll sit there and I'll be like, okay, I took care of my laundry. I have nothing else to do. What do I do? I took care of my laundry. I even sat for an extra hour, and now I'm still, what do I do?
A lot of people will take a nap.
That's what I did too. Yeah, and the environment is conducive to kind of seclusion, and it really helped. Like it's clear because everybody here, the Sangha, everybody places a great emphasis on the actual practice, on the actual sitting meditation, and then trying to, as best as they can, maintain that attitude throughout life.
Precisely so. That's the whole point. And so what you're doing there at the monastery or wherever, when you get home, call me and I'll give you a whole line of techniques that you can use that will help you maintain that your let us say the schedule that you're talking about that's so well known. What we're mentioning here is triggers, or when you hear that bell ring, you do this, and when that alarm goes off, you do that. And that then these bells and triggers and alarms and things like that are actually the living of the normal day. An example of that would be in the way that you eat there. Continue to eat just like that. Continue doing that, just like the folks who are living there do it.
Yeah. Yeah, I have a habit of I have a habit of watching TV when I eat. I'm realizing that's not the most helpful habit.
Oh no. There's many little techniques to do with that. One of them is that if you're eating in the company of another, you don't initiate any conversation. Your goal, your immediate goal is to finish your food at the rate of that you're only about halfway finished when everybody else is completely finished. You slow down your eating to the point.
Interesting.
All right, and when you're alone, you maintain that slowness. All right, in the sense of when you're eating, you chew the food, you're chewing it, which means now you're putting all of your mental activity on the focus of the inside of the mouth. What are the tastes? What are the textures? Where is that little piece that has not been chewed well yet? All of that kind of stuff. And while we're doing that, there's no need to do the hands. So you'll probably at that place, they teach you to put down your spoon or your whatever, any utensils, and to have your hands empty while you're chewing a morsel. And when that morsel is finished, then you check the inside of your mouth to make sure that there's nothing left in there, and then you'll go and prepare the next morsel.
Yeah.
This is an old style. This goes right back to the time of the Buddha, and so that kind of practice is done throughout all of the Sanghas. And it should be the same technique with the Zen and with the Theravada, that technique of eating. That you make sure that you chew the food before you swallow it. You don't have to really count. It's not a matter so much of counting, but some
Yeah.
places will say you have to do it 28 or sometimes of chewing, but that's not necessary.
Yeah.
So
I have
anyway,
a question. So I've noticed that because of the environment, I have light just turned off. I have much better concentration in my uh, zazen, in my sits, and we had kind of talked about in one of our earlier discussions about how we want to make the mind serviceable, and
yes.
we want to make the mind serviceable so that we can use it for insight. And I feel like I've now regularly gotten to this point where my mind is serviceable, and then I don't know what to do. I don't know what it means to then use it for
Okay.
insight.
I'm
Yeah.
I'm sure that this if you hear what I say, you can actually then verify that this is true with any of the Zen folk. And here's what I'm saying. There's two qualities that we're looking for. First, the quality is the getting into the state. And then the second quality is how to maintain that state. And how to maintain that state is exactly the question that you asked. Now that I'm in here, what do I need to do? The answer is to stay there. And there's
Mm.
various things that we need to do in order to stay in that state. But first off, let's describe what the state is. Now here's the point: is that what I'm talking about right now is in a deeper detail in the Theravada than it is in the Zen. But it works that same way with the Zen, and the issue is that state has a major one quality to it, and that is the state of satisfaction. If it does not have the state of satisfaction to it, then why maintain it? Maybe something else is better.
Mm.
That's what we get down to that state of just sitting really is just
Yes.
zazen or the state of satisfaction. So the quality of the state of satisfaction has some, let us say, some brothers or some points. And when we gather all of these brothers together, then we've got a unity or a whole there. And these are the factors of the first jhana. And the first jhana is a state of concentration, but but the word concentration is not the right word for it. This is actually a state of samadhi.
Mm.
But samadhi has been so oftenly translated into um, concentration that we often fail to understand that this kind of concentration is a gathering together of factors rather than the American way of thinking about concentration is focusing down on something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, now gathering together the factors is not necessarily anything like this focusing down. I offer you the idea, I don't know whether they're using that there or not, but the idea of the concept of the Zen stick. Do you know why they use
They
the Zen
use it.
stick?
It seems to almost shock my body into relaxing a little.
Okay, well, what you need to do is, and here's the technique, he will not hit you if you indicate to him very subtly that you know he's there.
They do it. They do it voluntarily here. So the guy walks around with a stick, and if you put your palms together, you bow, and then he will. You can ask for it. Is in other words how it works.
That's actually kind of backwards to the way that I would have expected them to do it, but
Yeah.
it does its thing because it really does bring you to the here now. In fact, him just walking around the Zendo has
Exactly.
quite a lot to do with keeping you in the moment.
Mm-hmm.
That's excellent. That's part of the zazen is be here now. Be here just doing nothing, just sitting, but you're awake. Now, the kind of concentration that Westerners think of is basically kind of the jhanas, is where we systematically shut down the senses. But really, what Zazen and Vipassana both are about is to open up the senses and to be here now in our sensory world and not in our head. And to be here now is quite marvelous. It really is quite wonderful to be free from all the trash talk that we've been telling ourselves for our whole lives.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so we can just sit here and just be joyful and peaceful, and that joy comes from the success and the satisfaction of being able to clean out the mind and to be here now with that zazen. And it's really good that the Zendo master is walking around with that Zen stick, because that's going to help a whole lot in keeping people here now, rather than drifting off into la la land with the hindrances or getting too deep into jhana. Both of them are actually sensual worlds in the sense of the manufactured senses, as opposed to the actual reality of the senses that we are in the present moment. A better word would be calling it sensual desire, because it's got a lust and a longing with it, to where the actual here now has a quality of, this is really satisfying, this is good because it's here right now, and I don't have to want anything or make it any better than it is. Okay, so that's the basic path of how you get into that state. And surprisingly enough, as I'm teaching you here, I'm actually thinking about the various steps of anapanasati that are built into that. But telling you that way will be quite agreeable to the Zen. That's exactly possibly even the way that they would tell you to do it. You have to become really satisfied in order to be in a state that's really for the mind fit for work. So we've talked about that. Now let's talk about, once you get into that state, which you've talked about, you are.
Hello? You've cut out completely. Not getting anything.